5 countries, 6,000 kilometers, more than 100 passengers from 10 nations. On March 28th, the Caravan for Peace, Life, and Justice began its journey in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. As Honduran organizations expressed their support and the press fired off questions, the Caravan announced its plan to travel through Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and into the United States to gather the stories of populations under siege in the war on drugs and take their message to the United Nations Special Session on Drugs beginning April 19th in New York City. Since the UN set its goal of a drug-free world decades ago, there's probably no policy in human history that has failed so dismally. As the production, use, and trafficking of prohibited drugs has continued, and in fact increased over the years, the policy package of prohibition, punishment, and militarization has proved to be far more lethal than the substances it purports to control. The Caravan found that Mexico is a dramatic example. Amnesty International's review of Mexico's violence notes the cause and effect relationship between the U.S.-Mexican government's counter-narcotics strategy and human rights violations, saying, reports of torture and other ill treatment increased as violence spiraled in Mexico after 2006 as a result of the government's war on drugs. With every mile, the Caravan unraveled the war on drugs and discovered that drug prohibition is a smokescreen, an excuse for repressive governments to control and attack those who oppose powerful economic and political interests.
Peace.
The Caravan also brought together grassroots calls for change from people and organizations that are already involved in making it. In places where grassroots organizations are fighting to defend their lands and territories, militarized counter-narcotics operations are turning their guns against the people.
Ellos se aferran a que es una guerra contra las drogas, es una guerra contra el narcotráfico, pero la verdad es una guerra contra nuestros hogares, es una guerra contra nuestra familia, contra nuestros hijos.
Life.
The life and death stakes of the war on drugs and militarism in the region came into stark relief when a principal ally and organizer of the Caravan, the environmental, feminist, and anti-imperialist leader Berta Cáceres in Honduras, was murdered on March 3rd, just weeks before the launch. While saddened, the Caravan's visit with her organization, COPIN, sealed a firm commitment to continue Berta's work, multiplied in the voices of thousands in countries around the world. The drug war is designed to be a permanent war with no exit strategy. The people from these countries have already seen too much war.
Yo salí por ahí gritando. Cuando yo salí, mi vino me agarró a mí. Me hizo así en mi cintura. Yo no tengo nada. Le dije, usted mataste a mi hijo. Le dijo que el helicóptero que del policía americano eran ellos. Hombres altos, grandes, ellos eran.
But the Caravan for Peace also found that resistance to drug war and imprisonment and to the hidden agenda of land grabs and social control behind it is always an affirmation of human rights, of culture, an affirmation of life.
Es un acto simbólico por todas y todas las personas que han desaparecido en las carreteras de México. Este globo es color verde, porque las familias de los desaparecidos han optado por tener el color verde, porque es símbolo de vida. ¡Vivos se los llevaron!
¡Vivos los queremos!
¡Vivas se las llevaron!
¡Vivas las queremos!
Justice.
Along the drug war trail, for every atrocity denounced, there's a call for justice, and most of those voices are women's.
Esta caravana por la paz, la vida y la justicia hace eco a todas nuestras voces, experiencias y testimonios de las graves violaciones de derechos humanos que se cometen en nombre del supuesto combate a las drogas.
Despite the disastrous results, the U.S. government continues to fund and fuel the drug war in these countries. Taxpayer dollars have served to increase violence against civilians, bolster corrupt, anti-democratic governments, strengthen armed forces in nations emerging from military dictatorships, and accelerate erosion of the rule of law. These are the human costs of the war on drugs, the pain of the relatives of the disappeared, the separation of families by borders obsessed with the security of states and transnationals, but not the rest of us. Borders that conflate failed efforts to block the flow of prohibited substances with policies that treat human beings, international workers, even children fleeing for their lives, as contraband and a national security threat. But the caravan also brought people together, with the hope of together creating another reality. A growing number of people, from former presidents to victims' organizations, are calling for an end to the war on drugs. The alchemy of the road transforms every crossing of the lines that divide us into a meeting of new friends and allies. A caravan of unity in diversity. A caravan of shared pain and shared hopes. The friendships forged on the Caravan for Peace, Life, and Justice are the building blocks of alliances between organizations, ties between nations, and common cause within our region. A region torn apart by the drug war, but determined that peace, life, and justice are worth fighting for.